Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where today we are explaining and breaking down the Maryland real estate market, and let's jump right into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we talk about all things living here in the state of Maryland. So if that's the kind of information that you are looking for, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button so you can be notified of our new weekly videos where we talk about all things living here in Maryland. And if you ever have any real estate questions, looking to come to the area, move to the area, we love answering your questions. They do come directly to me, so feel free to reach out anytime. All right, so today we're talking about the Maryland real estate market, and just wanted to go over real quick with you guys just kind of why the Maryland market is so so steady, so consistent. It's pretty pricey here. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick explanation as to why. So if you come here to Maryland, if you're here for just a few minutes, you will end up meeting someone who is in the military, works for the government, does some sort of government contracting, and really our economy and thus our housing market is really kind of built on that. So when you're talking about jobs, there's really nothing more stable than a job with the federal government, right? So our market, our economy is really built on that. And that's really why you're going to see the higher cost of living here, because everything is really driven by that. So when you look at the DC, Maryland area, it's called the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia. When you look at that area as a combined statistical area, Maryland is number 3 in the country, only behind New York, LA. So the New York combined statistical area is made up of New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut, and parts of Pennsylvania, right? And there's 22 million people there, so that's number 1. Number 2 is Greater Los Angeles and Long Beach, right? So California is a beast, right? If California was its own country, it'd be the 5th largest economy in the world. So it's crazy, but just LA and Long Beach, about 18.5 million people there. That's number 2, and it's the only one in the top 5, I think, that is not like a multi-state area. And then right behind, LA is going to be the DMV, so Maryland. So that's made up of DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia, 3 counties in West Virginia, and 1 county in Southern Pennsylvania, totaling about 10 million people. So that's really what our economy, our housing market is kind of driven by. And from the 2010 census to 2020 estimates, our area here has a 9% population increase. So more people are moving here, all good things for the economy, which is going to reflect in the housing market. And that's the biggest reason why it's just, steadily always, for the most part, gone up and is one of the more expensive parts of the country. So now to speak specifically to our 2021 housing market here in Maryland, it's very competitive, right? Just like almost all other parts of the country, the real estate market's on fire nationwide. And it hasn't it's always been like this. For me, I've been here 7 years doing real estate full time, and it's not this much. This is a different breed of competition, like the COVID, post-COVID real estate market here. But my entire career here selling real estate full time, I've seen multiple offers the entire time. We were in a seller's market going into COVID. It just kind of took it to a whole nother level. When inventory even kind of shrunk more, and then more and more buyers with interest rates continuing to stay at historic lows. So if you are looking to move to Maryland, if you're considering purchasing a home, just wanted to give you an idea of what to expect. So as I mentioned, it is very competitive. It's very common to see 5, 6, 10 plus offers on any given home. The nicer the home, the more competitive it's going to be. So, in my experience, the nicer the home, if it looks like it could be on HGTV, if it's got the really nice kitchen, nice baths, right, those homes are going to, in the right area, in the nicer areas, are going to draw 20, 25, 30 offers. So it's just pretty wild right now, and that's what you can expect currently. So it's just something to be prepared for, something to expect here if you're coming to this area. So when there's that many offers, what's going on, what's happening? So when there's multiple offers like that, and the higher the number, the crazier it gets. But for the most part, the list price is really just a starting point. So people are, it's being bid up. People are starting above list price. People are escalating even higher than that. Escalation is really when you're saying, I will beat any higher offer than me in an incremental amount capped at X. And you would set a cap just to make sure that, it just can't, go unlimited, right? So you're seeing high offer prices with escalations. You're seeing, it's very common to see as is, and in a lot of cases, no inspections at all. So those are the things that you're going to be competing against. In a more neutral market, the seller it's very common to see the seller help the buyer with some of their closing costs, which could total typically 3 to 4% of your purchase price. So if you take your proposed purchase price, times it by 3 or 4%, that's going to give you a rough estimate of what your closing costs are going to be. And in this market, it's just not happening. So if you're in a multiple offer situation, the seller's going to have someone that's willing to pay those on their own. And if you're asking for it, it's just something that unfortunately is probably going to put you out of competition. So these are all things that are happening right now. The nicer the home, the more of this stuff that you're going to see. If you're willing to look at something that maybe needs some work, maybe it's more dated, you're probably going to be in a less competitive situation. So if that's something you're open to, it's something that will help out. It's probably still going to be competitive, just not as competitive. A couple other things to expect here in the Maryland real estate market is in regards to appraisals. So an appraisal is always required for financing. However, in the competitive environment that we're in, we're seeing more and more buyers, and this has been happening for a while. They're either waiving a part of the appraisal, meaning like they're setting an actual figure to it. If the property under appraises, I will pay above appraised value up to $10,000, $15,000, whatever. So the buyer has flexibility to set that figure. So for example, if you're under contract at $300,000, the property appraises at $280,000, and you told the seller you would pay up to $10,000 above appraised value, you would, by the contract, you would be forced to pay $290,000 for the property, but the $10,000 has to come in dollar for dollar out of your pocket, because the bank judges and does everything for the loan based on the appraised value. So your down payment and everything would be based on $280,000, and you would have to come up an additional $10,000 in addition to your down payment, in addition to your closing costs. And that's kind of how that works. We would force the seller to come down from $300,000 to $290,000, but that's kind of how that would play out in an appraisal situation. Sometimes buyers are waiving it altogether. In ultimate, in very competitive situations, some buyers are saying, you know what, the appraisal is required for my financing, but I don't care where it comes in. I'm going to pay the difference no matter what it is. That makes it very challenging. If you're unable to do that, that makes it very challenging. But that is happening in our marketplace. It's happening across the country in certain parts. I mean, I've been talking to realtors, and this stuff is happening. It's not just Maryland. So it's just a pretty wild time, but this is something that you can expect as well, again, depending on how competitive it is. If you're looking at just 2, 3, 4 offers, you're probably not going to see someone waive the appraisal altogether. You might see in my example, like a $5,000 or $10,000 cap. You might see something like that. But if there's 10 plus offers, there's a very, very good chance that the winning offer or the top 2 offers are waiving that altogether. It's very possible. And then the final thing that I wanted to prepare people for, if you're looking at homes online or even in person, and it's noticeable that the people are still occupying the property, I'd say it's about a 50-50 chance that you're going to get a rent back request from the seller. And what that means is they're going to ask you to close on the home, typically in 30 to 40 days, and then they're going to ask for your permission to stay in the home for another 30 to 60 days. Lenders will allow up to 60 days according to federal guidelines for these loans, Fannie, Freddie, and HUD, who do conventional and FHA financing. So it's very possible you're going to see that, which means that you would close on the home and become the owner, and then grant permission for the seller to stay for a negotiated period of time, and then they would leave. So you wouldn't be able to take, obviously, possession of the home until they fully move out. So that's just something to keep in mind too if you're looking at properties that are occupied. If it's vacant, that's not going to be anything that you're going to see requested from the seller. And in Maryland, our earnest money deposit, good faith deposit, it's common across the country and in all 50 states to do some sort of upfront buyer deposit upon getting an offer accepted. Our industry standard here in Maryland is roughly 1%. It's fully negotiable, but 1% is a pretty common figure. So if you're buying a $400,000 home, it'd be about $4,000. And again, that's negotiable, but I wouldn't get too crazy with it. You know, some people want to put down, you know, in that example, 400 grand, you know, put 10, 15, 20,000 down. It does not put any extra money in the seller's pocket for you to increase the earnest money. And in my experience, it doesn't necessarily really help you stand out either. The sellers are really focusing on who's, you know, the emotions are usually set aside for sellers. They're looking for who's putting the most money in their pocket. Earnest money, you just want to make sure you're not unusually low. So you want to probably stick with that 1% figure, but going above and beyond that is really not going to help you. So I'd be careful with that, because that's really the only money out of your pocket until you get to the very, very end. At the very, very end, you're going to submit your final funds to, you know, usually 1 to 2 days before closing. So to buy a home in Maryland, you're looking at making offers. You're not giving anyone a penny until you get a fully accepted offer. And that's what you can expect here in Maryland. I would not pay anyone anything if they're asking for, you know, for you to compensate them for their time. That's something that individual person is requesting. It's not an industry standard. So earnest money is the only thing up front. If you're doing a home inspection, that's going to be paid at the time of inspections as well, but everything else is going to be typically at the very end. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out directly, and we will see you at the next video.